Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, Adrian here. Welcome back to the channel and to another MMO discussion video. The last one turned out to be pretty fantastic. I want to thank everybody for sharing your thoughts in that one. And in case you missed it, you can click the card that's going to be popping up over here. And it was about which MMORPG, dead or alive, would you like to see get a reboot. This discussion today is going to be about which MMORPGs should be on consoles. And look, I am aware of the whole PC master race versus the console era and all that stuff. Really, who cares? Because I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind away. MMORPGs on consoles? Not so bad at all. And I'm not talking about the cross-platform play thing. I mean, that's cool. I'm talking about being multi-platform in general, because there is a real substantial benefit of having an MMORPG on consoles, and it's going to bring a lot of good things to an existing MMO. For example, it's going to cast a wider net, which means more players are going to be playing that MMORPG, in addition to all that extra revenue that a game will make for being on the PC and consoles. And that, for an MMO, simply means you get more regular content updates and the servers will stay on for a lot longer. When it comes to console MMOs, there are existing MMORPG success stories of games launching on the PC and then moving on to consoles, or games that have been developed on the PC but have thought ahead and said, look, in a couple of years time we want to make that console launch. It is part of the blueprint when we were designing this MMO. I mean, just to name a few, probably the biggest ones out there, Elder Scrolls Online, for example, launched on PC and then went multi-platform as well. I mean, that game, ESO, has so many players, which is great. And Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn, obviously, launch was a disaster. They rebuilt the game ground up, and they added in the PlayStation port as well, which is great because, you know, Sony Japan, Final Fantasy Japan, I mean, you can make that connection. But it's proven to be successful. It's got what, 10 million players now Final Fantasy has, so that's in itself a really cool success story. And look, even Neverwinter, yes, Dungeons and Dragons Neverwinter is on the consoles, and regardless of what you think about Neverwinter, the PS4 population apparently is pretty high, so that's a testament to having the game on consoles as well. Now, having these existing games out there is a great statistic, but you know, for all the games that are not on consoles, we have to also consider why that is. Is it because, you know, the engine or the coding doesn't allow for it? I know there's been recent games that have actually hired engineers to make console ports happen. Some of the biggest ones includes Black Desert Online, which has been saying that they really want to jump onto consoles sometime very soon, so we're going to see that happen. And, you know, judging by the fact of just the amount of player base in BDO in general. Again, it's one of those games that's going to be splitting players. You either like BDO or you really hate the grindy slash pay-to-win nature of the game, depending on whatever your opinion is. Whatever version you jump into, North America, Europe, Korea, even the Southeast Asian version, which I reviewed recently, population is actually really high. I can only imagine with a console launch, that's going to take it to a whole new level, which will be great for BDO in terms of the amount of revenue that they'll make and, you know, the exposure as well. And the important thing to note is games like that, the blueprint or the DNA of the game suits console as well because of the amount of skills, the combat system, for example, and the UI and everything. It just fits consoles. So I'm asking for your opinion. What MMORPGs out there currently existing that are not on consoles would you like to see come to consoles? Take into consideration the style of game, the amount of skills probably, or the hotbar, or the combat system, things like that. But also, I think it'll be interesting to consider the current state of the game. Is the player base thriving, or is the game in decline? Or is a certain MMO bleeding players, and would moving over to consoles kind of save that situation? And off the top of, you know, my head, there's a couple of games that I think could go into consoles, some to help with the population and others to give it a bit of a boost. It doesn't need the population, it just wants to cast a wider net to get more players and make more money. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, but right now feel free to put yours in the comments section below. First game for me that comes to mind in terms of being on console to get more players is Wallstar. I mean, Wallstar, I've recently jumped back into it for a Twitch stream just to casually play again, and I've been falling in love with Wallstar again because it's a charming game when it comes to the world and the environments and just the overall, Wallstar is a pretty charming game, and the combat system is going to split players. Some like it, some don't, but I think when you look at it big picture, with the amount of skills that Wallstar has on the hotbar in terms of how the combat mechanics work with the whole ground telegraph system and everything, Wallstar just screams console to me. I think if they were able to go to consoles, that would bring a lot more players in. The game is already free to play on Steam as well, so I think consoles would be the final push that Carbine Studios, the developers, and NCSoft, the publishers, could look at pursuing. Because if not, that they're going to be missing out again on a large chunk of revenue, which, talking to a couple of Wallstar players, when it comes to content, not a lot has been going on lately, and the last executive producer's letter for 2018 was all about, okay, great, we saved the game for another year. That's not good. I mean, there's got to be some positive to that, but I don't know if NCSoft or Carbine would have the money to make a port, because as much as it's easy saying that this game should be on consoles, but the amount of money and effort that takes, I don't know if they can pull it off. But consoles should be the one thing that Wallstar should be looking at doing, because I believe with their combat system and the game and how it functions and everything, I think Wallstar will be a great candidate for being on the consoles. Next up for me, and this I was debating with myself on this one, but I think consoles would do it great, is Star Wars: The Old Republic. SWTOR is one of the biggest MMORPGs out there in terms of name and IP. It is Star Wars. That's a franchise. It's a household name. And it's one of the few franchises that are not on the consoles when you compare it to the other big guns out there. Elder Scrolls Online is on the consoles. Final Fantasy is on the consoles. I think Star Wars being on consoles would just bring brand new life to the game. Never mind what the current state of it is, whether it's more focused with single player, and even if they're bringing raids and everything back, it could be one of those games that by having a console port will change the outlook completely, simply because of the new generation of players that will be coming in, and consoles would be. It just suits it, when you think about the class stories and moving on into the Outlander stuff and everything, where it's more single player focused. The entire game's based on being narrative driven, so you got all these cutscenes and all these cinematics and all this dialogue that I think console players, if they find out that SWTOR is on, it's going to really, really enjoy. The bad part is the combat system and the skills in general. I think SWTOR, having played it recently as well, from what I see in game, what I experience in game, there's a bloat of skills when it comes to SWTOR, and there's a lot of different skills that every class will have. You're not going to use all of them. Some of it's situational, and I'm just wondering how a console port would affect that. They may have to rebalance some of these skills at the risk of changing the PC version. But I don't know if that's a risk that BioWare and EA wants to take. But again, I strongly believe that a console port or console launch for SWTOR would totally change that game around. More revenue, more player base, and it'll be exciting times. Whether or not they do it, I don't know. So let me know what you guys think about SWTOR being consoles. And finally for me, my third pick is Guild Wars 2. I mean, come on, Guild Wars 2 on consoles would be pretty amazing. And I say that because I play Guild Wars 2 a lot. I'm an active player, and looking at how the combat mechanics work in terms of the limited amount of skills you have, in addition to the other traits and stuff that you use on the other side of the combat panel, I think consoles, it will be just right for consoles. And the game with where it's at in terms of the episodic content, with all the seasons and living world, I mean, they are doing okay even without a console launch. When it comes to population, Guild Wars 2 still has a pretty large player base that actively comes back every time there's a new content or every time there's a festival. And with the upcoming PvP and World versus World changes, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more players coming back to check that out. So what would a console launch accomplish in general for Guild Wars 2? Mainly just put it up there, right up there, as one of the most played MMORPGs to date or in the future if it does come to consoles. And the more revenue Guild Wars 2 makes, maybe a faster progression, a content cycle we might see from ArenaNet. I mean, that really depends. It's hard to sit here and predict things, but that's what MMO discussion videos are all about. You know, we're always speculating and theory crafting and everything. So I would really love to see Guild Wars 2 on consoles. The combat system shouldn't be a problem to port over. And again, I don't know nothing about, you know, coding and everything, so I say that with ease. But yeah, I hope it can be done in the future, because I think a lot more players, again, will be playing Guild Wars 2. As for what I said earlier about Star Wars: The Old Republic and, you know, it having a lot of skills when it comes to combat mechanics, it shouldn't be an excuse, or it shouldn't be a problem. I hope not, because when you look at Final Fantasy XIV, at least when I was playing Final Fantasy XIV for my review last year, thinking about it now, the game does have quite a lot of skills, and you know, you can have multiple 3, 4, 5 hotbars with the various different skills and stuff in there. But by plugging in a controller into the PC, you can just about alter things, and when you play that on the console, it works just the same. I mean, Sony and Square Enix has found a way to put that amount of skills into a console controller UI system. So I don't think it should be a problem for other MMORPGs out there that has plenty of skills to try and emulate the same, you know, thing. So let's just hope it happens for, you know, some of these games, and I'm eagerly awaiting, you know, hearing your thoughts as well. And to end this discussion video, look, it's easy saying that a console port could be a game changer for some of these MMORPGs. In majority of cases, that has proven to be the case. Again, I'm gonna keep bringing these games up as examples: Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy XIV, Neverwinter, and you know, World of Warcraft doesn't need to go on consoles. That's just how it is, and I don't think it will ever come to consoles. But if World of Warcraft does announce consoles, I guarantee you, when it comes to the gaming world, the internet will probably break, because there'll be millions of players just jumping in joy for that. I don't see it happening. Like I said, I don't think Blizzard wants to do that. But to the real point I was getting across here, it's not always a success story, because there has been some games that were in the similar mindset. Maybe a console port could help give the game a boost, and the problem was, you know, studios, or this studio in particular, put all their eggs in that basket, and it went horribly wrong. I'm of course talking about Marvel Heroes Omega, which is the console port for Marvel Heroes. Now, when they made this port, the story goes that, you know, because of the port and all these balancing changes between all the different hero classes and everything, it completely broke the game from a PC player-based standpoint, and they started bleeding players, all because they were so focused on, you know, putting out Marvel Heroes Omega, which is the console version. So things could go wrong as well, and it happens. So that's it for me. I'd really love to know, which MMORPGs do you think should be on consoles? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Hit the like button for more MMO discussion videos, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more MMO content. I do reviews, live streams, and more. Once again, I'm Adrian, and I thank you for watching. Hey, welcome to the end screen. If you've made it this far, it means you've watched the entire video, and I thank you very much for that. If you want to watch more videos, you can click the cards at the bottom here, anyone would do. And you can subscribe to my channel by hitting the big round button here to get notifications on all my latest videos. See you guys in the next video.